Kelela, Raven, album review? Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest album from Miss Kelela, Washington-based singer, songwriter, R&B songstress. She's been at it for a few years now, and since the beginning, I've been saying it. She's something special, man. I mean, I've always enjoyed her music, but every time, whether it be a feature or an EP or a project rolls around, I feel like she's doing something different, and it's almost always pushing just about every envelope. Now, I was unaware of her around the time of her Cut From Me mixtape, but I did catch up to it about a year or two later, and I was super impressed with it. I mean, I thought some of the songwriting could have been sharpened up a little bit. It wasn't perfect in that department, but she was doing a lot of cool things right off the bat. I was mostly just super impressed with the way that she was taking the modern R&B sound and just pushing it so far into a modern era. Like I said, I wasn't absolutely blown away by the project, but my eyes were on her. Now she followed up with her fantastic Hallucinogen EP, an EP that I still listen to all the freaking time. It is such a great EP. I mean, Rewind is awesome. It was a lot more memorable in my book. I thought the hooks really popped this time around. It was once again super catchy and very progressive thinking. I was super excited to hear her full-length studio debut, Take Me Apart, and all around she delivered. It was one of my top 10 favorite albums of the year for a very good reason. It is just an all-around absolute banger of an alternative R&B album. It was immaculately performed. The production was futuristic. This, to me, is everything that R&B could be right now, and especially because, I mean, outside of her and Miguel and obviously Frank Ocean, I mean, I've never been that much of an R&B guy, but Kelela's stuff has just thrown me back into the fold. It's been a great ride up until now, and hearing that she was coming out with a new album excited the hell out of me. I thought all the singles leading up to this thing were awesome, and I don't know if I'm going soft or this year is heating up really fast, but whew, is it hot in here? This album is incredible. Absolutely incredible. This album starts off with Washed Away, and I will be honest, when I first heard it as a single, it was probably the first one released, and I didn't really, get it. I wasn't really that into it, but hearing it in the greater scheme of the album, I think it really starts things off in a really brilliant way. It really does set the tone for the rest of this album. It's very mysterious. We get a very heavy, almost ambient backdrop here, which is something you're going to hear me say quite a bit. And Kelela's vocals, they are just super mysterious, super powerful. They blend really well. It is a pretty wowing start. The production tricks as well. Kudos to that. Then we get Happy Ending, and I have to say, the production on almost every track on this album is near perfect. The fades, the beats, the dense layering, the cinematic edge to it all. It is gravy. Oh, and then you have Kelela on top of this all with an incredibly sexy, very silky performance. She sounds on top of the world. It's got the urgency that I crave on a track like this, but it's also got the passion that an R&B track of this nature deserves. And on top of all that, in true Kelela fashion, it is a very futuristic, progressive R&B tune that is really rooted in all of the classic R&B sounds. It's awesome. I knew I was going to love this album, but man, I didn't think it was going to be this good. I mean, I knew it was going to be great, but this is awesome. We don't deserve this right now. On the other hand, Let It Go is much more slow burning, much more dramatic. And that's not a bad thing, though. It's just as futuristic, progressive, very fresh sounding. But I think it's Kelela's performance that really ties this track and this whole entire album together. She sounds immaculate here. That alongside of the, once again, very ambient backdrop and the very spacey synths that we get here. It's cool. It's steamy. It's down to earth. It's full of love and passion and sexuality, but it's also just really classy and put together really, really well. This is some of the best R&B that I've heard since, I don't know, the last Kelela project. On the Run was the first single here that really hit me hard. It's probably the biggest throwback here. This sounds like a very, old school, almost 90s inspired R&B tune. The pulsing synths, the very subtle beat that we get here. It's very 90s, but it still has that very sleek, very modern feel to it that I do really enjoy. But it's absolutely beautifully performed, and lyrically, I would argue this is the most raw that Kelela has ever sounded. Miss Cole, on the other hand, I needed a track like this. This is a warm, very almost tropical at points sounding track. It's got some serious grooves too. I would argue this is good enough to be a single. And I commend Kelela once again for her incredibly personal lyrics. That alone is a reason to come up and check out this album. I feel like tracks like this break up the album nicely and make it feel more cinematic at the end of the day. Then we have Closure, which, on the other hand, is one of the steamiest tracks here. And it does it justice. My God, the bulky beat, the very silky backing vocals. This album has so much depth to it. I would argue as a whole, as far as an album goes, Kelela hasn't done anything this big. And the rap verse that we get here is actually really well done as well. It adds another level of cool to this already undeniably very cool album. Yeah, Kelela just continues to push all the boundaries and continues to be, in my view, the R&B star that we really deserve right now. Contact, I don't think it gets any better than this. This beat sounds like, I don't know, something ripped out of the best Aphex Twin album that you've never heard of. And on top of that, Kelela's smoky performance, the great production. This is awesome. This is kind of where I thought she'd be right now, and I'm so glad that she brought it to life because it's even better than I could have ever expected. This feels like this album's mission statement. Hell, it feels like this could be Kelela's mission statement as a whole. And it's just so catchy and accessible. Hell yes. Now, I know that tracks like Fooley are going to be a little more hit and miss with fans. We get a handful of these very minimal, very ambient sort of interlude tracks. If this track is stripped down to bare bones, it is just a dense backdrop of ambient sounds and some very light synths. Add in some very haunting vocals from Kelela, probably your most haunting here, and you get something that's very outside of her comfort zone. But I think it even adds more depth here. It makes this feel like you're just like sitting through an experience from start to finish. And I love that. Holier is even done more in this vein. We practically get some drone influence in the background. But Kelela's smoky vocals just pierce through everything. She sounds incredible. This album takes a lot of risks, and so many of them pay off. And this track is easily the most meditative and stark thing here. But it's just as much of a gut punch. It is just that far ahead of the curve. It is so impressive. By the time we get to this album's title track, Raven, this album has become a whole lot bleaker, to be perfectly honest, and the instrumentals have become very monochromatic. But it really is intense, and Kelela does a really great job of breaking through it. I love the metaphors here. The imagery is so fantastic. It's so personal. And you know, I don't think this is the album that I was expecting to hear from Kelela, but it is something much greater than that. By the end of this track, it's just so textured, so lush. This is awesome. And the late track beat drop that we get, like, I can't be much more impressed. The seamless transition into Bruises is done masterfully. It's a very bleak and dreary banger, one of the most hypnotizing tracks that we get here. And Kelela's performance, once again, it's on top form. This is a beefy album. It's over an hour long, but I can't stop. And the second that I was done with it, I couldn't wait to listen to it again. I mean, by the time we get to Divorce, it's just obvious. This album has packed so much in. This is actually a really impressive piece of ambient with some heavenly vocals mixed in. And Enough for Love, late in the album, is just the sort of pick-me-up, more pop-oriented track that I needed. It's full of emotion, and it's one of the more sensible pop tunes here. This could go down as another just, like, iconic Kelela track. But it also has its left-field experimental side. I'm happy. And clearly she's not slowing down with Far Away as a finale either. The chilly synths, the heavenly vocals, the callbacks to this album's intro track. It's all done so tastefully. Instantly, in a few short minutes, every theme, every emotion of this album is summed up. This feels like an experience almost completely from start to finish with such little filter, shockingly little filter. I mean, if I had to choose one track here I really wasn't into, it would be Sorbet. I was in such an immense, practically a trance listening to this album. Then this track came along and just kind of got me out of it. It's one of the quietest and most sensual tracks here, which on paper sounds pretty good. But it's also one of the most one-dimensional tracks here, shockingly so, with just how textured and lush everything else going on here is. If that's my one complaint, hey, yeah, this album is a whole lot better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I knew I was going to love it, but this is album of the year potential, and we're halfway through February, folks. Kelela continues to be the R&B star that I think we deserve the most right now. Her thoughts, her musical ideas continue to be completely futuristic, forward-thinking, ahead of their time. She's pushing every button, but doing so in such a great way. I mean, she has done all of that while also revealing more about herself. You know, putting together this hour-long piece about identity, sexuality, passion, love, and more. She's also done it with really great beats, pop sensibility, stellar production from start to finish. Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. I almost gave it a 10. I almost did. But I'm feeling a very strong 9 on this album. Go listen to it. You won't regret it. But let me know what you all think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.